Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. So this is Sutta class number 7 for Vasa 2022, and the theme is about Kamma and rebirth. Really, this is the true facts of Kamma. Not all the stories about it, ghost stories and stuff, the real facts of Kamma. Are you ready? So, to start off with, everything you know about Kamma, forget it. Going to start over right from the beginning, the truth. Okay. And unfortunately, we still use this word Kamma, in Pali anyway. I mean, most people know the word karma from Sanskrit, but it's really so. I looked in the dictionary and it's so distorted. Don't even look at it. You get all kinds of wrong ideas. Mostly it's defined as fate or destiny. It's determinism, not Buddhism. So, but using the Pali word Kamma, hopefully we get a new perspective. We can approach it in a new way, get a new definition. Anyway, even if we use this strange word, Pali word, but basically it's very simple. Basically moral or ethical causality. And all the religions, as far as I know, hold some degree of belief in moral causality. The different ways they do it, but they all believe in doing good things gets you a favorable situation. Usually they put it in terms of heaven and hell. You do good things, you get born in heaven. You do bad things, you get born in hell. That's a very simple, even simplistic definition. And it's important to make a distinction that ethical causality, moral causality, is cause and effect. So action, Kamma means action, but there's always implied a result. But it's already implied. It's only implied a potential result, because not all actions give a result. You can say a moral result. So anyway, starting with that anyway. So the prelude is, you got that so far? First step. Okay. Yeah. So unfortunately, the word karma anyway from Sanskrit, the Buddha inherited kind of the foundation or tradition of the basics of Brahmanism. So he inherited some of these beliefs, but the Buddha had his own unique insight on these particular beliefs. A lot of them were just accepted as hearsay, weren't really even proven. Just like today, the Buddha was able to have, he said he had direct experience of rebirth. He could recall his previous rebirths or his previous, habitations, where he dwelled before. And but most people don't have that ability, so they just have to take on hearsay, all kinds of speculations, and we hear ghost stories and all kinds of things, but we don't really know exactly. But over the years, from the very, very early Hindu scriptures, the word karma changed its meaning. In the very, very beginning, karma meant the action of the sacrifice, because ancient Hinduism was basically just like the Greek religion. They're worshiping the gods. And the way to worship the god was to do the sacrifice, see? Killing some animals, sacrificing animals, or burning ghee or something. Or then later it was chanting, special ritual ceremonies and special chanting, ritual chanting. Later, around the Buddha's time, the idea changed a little bit, that people could create effective karma by internal work, yoga, meditation, study. Yeah. So the Buddha inherited that tradition, fortunately, as a meditator. So the Buddha inherited this understanding we can do things like meditate and create good effects. But the Buddha made a very, very radical change, probably the most radical and maybe the most evolved development in the concept of Kamma. He defined Kamma as intention. You know what intention is? Intention, will, volition. Right? You know what that is? I don't see many heads nodding. Because actually it's very subtle. You know, what is your intention? For example, what's your intention to be here today? Be in this monastery, for example. You know what your intention is? Exactly, precisely, continuously? I'll give you a little hint. Everyone's intention is different, but I'll give you a hint that there's many levels to it, many levels of intention. So this depends on what your state of mind is, what level you can tune into. So some of the psychologists talked about our hierarchy of needs. We have basic needs. The very basic one is just for physical comfort, you know, for food and warmth and shelter, you know, and medicine maybe for sickness. And then there are other needs higher than that. I think Maslow had 5. Abraham Maslow, he had 5. After physiological needs, there was safety needs, to be safe and secure. Then there was love and acceptance and belonging. Then there was esteem, being respected, and status. And the highest one is what he calls self-actualization, which is trying to realize the full potential of yourself. Or in Buddhism we say, realize your full potential of your non-self. Beyond yourself, beyond yourself. And all those needs are competing with our will altogether. They're always competing. So our will is our fundamental drive of the self. But it's so deeply ingrained in us, it's very hard to recognize. You know? And as I mentioned, there's many different levels to it. You know, it's not actually, it is a sankhara. If you want to talk about the 5 groups of grasping, it's a sankhara. You know, and it's the Buddha said it was the most dominant one. Most dominant of these states of mind, mental activities, is will. But it's so, you know, it's so deeply ingrained within us, and so subtle, if you like, because it's just pushing us around from behind. We hardly notice it. You know, why do you get up in the morning? Anybody ever think about it? Why do I get up in the morning? Because my alarm clock went off and told me to get up, and if I don't go to the sala, the Ajahn will scream at me and I'll lose status, right? Or I won't be loved. Or I won't get breakfast. So depends what your level of attention is, your level of awareness is, you know. But they all compete together, see. If you want to stay in the monastery, the Ajahn has to approve of you, so he has to like you, and then he allows you to have breakfast, and then, you know. And according to Maslow, you need the lower levels must be satisfied before the higher ones. So this explains quite a bit about people's motivation. Come to spiritual practice, for example. Some people, maybe they come to the monastery because they feel they have some kind of emotional trauma. They don't feel loved. They don't feel accepted or something. So that's their real obstacle in life. So they come to the monastery hoping to have some kind of cure for this. Not to be enlightened. That's a bit too lofty, but just to cure my broken heart or something. I don't know. feel some more love and acceptance for themselves or from other people. And then they come into practice, and after a while, that gets satisfied to some degree. And then, okay, it's time to move on. That's been satisfied. And, ideally you come to the monastery, for enlightenment, and you can say to them, oh, you only reached halfway now. You're just starting. No, that's enough, I don't want to be enlightened too quickly, Or they have all kinds of excuses, No, I have to expand my horizons, look further afield and find bigger people, bigger situations to love and be loved by them, and so they stop their spiritual practice basically. That's as much as they want, because that need has been fulfilled now. Maybe it changes later over life, but maybe they come back to it. Who knows? But that's enough for now. See. So to try and just, at least in the beginning, just try to be aware of what your intention is. Just every once in a while, maybe just note why you're doing this, or why you're doing that. Why are you walking to the sala? Why are you getting up in the morning? Why are you meditating? And it's just don't get too intellectual about it and think about it. Just see if you can contact it. What's behind it? What's that intention? What's motivating me? What's pushing me on? You see. Maybe you find some deeper level there. What is the real intention behind it all? And don't be fooled by appearances. People can appear to have an intention for one thing, but different motivation underneath it. The classic one is people trying to help other people. They go, oh, they're so compassionate, but many times they're not that compassionate. I'm going to tell you how to live your life, so it proves that my way of living the life is right. But I mean, you could acknowledge, okay, they do good things, but still the intention is not really pure there. See? So it's really hard to say, what one intention is. I find it easier to talk about percentages. It's like I mentioned about people coming here to make merit. You see, just to come here, they have that intention to come here is 100%, but to come all this way, make all this effort, because it is action. The action you have to go to come here is really a lot more difficult to come here than it is to go to a temple in the city. You do the same thing, you offer food to the monks, but all the extra effort to come here, all the kamma you make, all the action you generate, extra hours of traveling and and the possible dangers and all this, well, that adds up to increasing the amount. So 200% merit. And if you stay and meditate, Buddha also talked about how the amount of kamma depends on the quality of the mind. See, the quality of the intention. See, so if you're really can focus your intention on a really noble thing and keep it there, then the result increases. Positive result increases. On the other hand, if you try and look at intention, for example, you just see how difficult it is difficult to get a handle on it. But another way, it makes it easier because not every action we do has negative effect. Like walking around, if you step on an insect or something, don't need to worry about it too much. Yeah, it's not a demeritorious result, you see. Yeah. If you did it intentionally, with anger and violence in your mind, and get rid of it, then much more stronger negative effect. If you just accidentally step on an insect, there still is you can say the intention that you weren't very clear-minded, you weren't mindful, see? But that has a smaller effect than with violence, you see. So a lot of the scriptures the Buddha talks about, when the Buddha talks about Kamma in the scriptures, a lot of it has to do with morality and ethics. He did say that there was basically there is quite noticeable relationship between action and result, even though it is a little bit hard to distinguish or muted, but there is a result of, for example, breaking if you could keep the 10 forms of good conduct, basically the 5 precepts, and they break it down into 10 because there are 3 of body, 4 of speech, 3 of mind. So they're refraining from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct. 4 of speech, refraining from lying, malicious speech, harsh speech, and frivolous speech. And 3 of mind, refrain from covetousness, ill will, and wrong view. And when it comes to the results of the Kamma, you can say that depends on the moral quality of it. So, it's a bit hard to tell sometimes between what's skillful and unskillful. Yeah, the Buddha said that it's very hard it's impossible to know exactly the result of a particular action. We're acting all the time and at different levels of intention, so it's impossible to know exactly. The reason I have a sore knee is because I kicked an enlightened monk last lifetime or something. You can't say that. All you can do is look at, as I think, get a sense for different patterns involved in it. If you act with violence, then very likely violence returns to you. If you act with kindness, then kindness returns to you. You can't say exactly, if I say a kindly word to that person, in 2 days' time somebody will be kind to me. No, you can't say it exactly. But generally the pattern holds, you see. And getting some perspective on what your intentions are can give you some, you can begin to see perhaps some link between your intentions and how they change, they lead into action of body, speech, and even thought. And then the result of that. You see the pattern sometimes. So the Buddha says there are 3 sources of Kamma. Greed, aversion, delusion are sources. And those actions born of, originating, arising out of greed, aversion, delusion is unskillful, blameworthy, and the result is painful. Whereas the opposites is skillful, not blameworthy, and result is pleasant, and leads to the cessation of Kamma. See, very basically, I would say that actions done in greed, aversion, delusion are very self-affirming. It's I want, I don't want, and I don't know. So it's a very self-affirming. Whereas actions done in non-greed, you have to not follow greed, you have to be self-sacrificing, right? You have to let go of your I would like that, but I won't feed that. I won't encourage that. I won't nurture that thought. And then that maybe becomes an action, becomes a speech. I won't nurture that, so it's self-sacrificing. Same with anger. You'd be angry with somebody, and if you act it out, it reinforces it. But if you refrain from acting it out, it doesn't mean it stops, but it doesn't increase the sense of self. Same with delusion, confusion. If you can just recognize, oh, the mind is confused now, just be careful what you say. But if you keep increasing your delusion, don't understand it, don't investigate it, don't study about it, then you get more and more confused. So, it's important to be able to, Kamma is the action. Always keep that in mind, define it as action. And the result is called Vipaka. And you have to keep the two separate, because not every action becomes result. It depends on the intensity of the action, depends on the quality of the action, the moral quality of the action, colors what the result is. But many people, they don't make that separation. They say, it's my karma, right? Something happens to you, you say, oh, it's my karma. That's fatalism. And it's actually, in Buddhism, it's wrong view. Yeah. Beware, which wrong view is bad karma. So, holding on to that view. So there's action and a potential result. By keeping these two separate, there's a possibility to change. See, the one particular action has the potential to give a certain result. If it's not, there's no change in your attitude, no change in your behavior, then that result will happen. But as you separate the two, there's a possibility to change. If you make a hasty decision and you shout at somebody, well, there's a negative effect of that. But then if you apologize, in between, now you can apologize, and that the effect on that, the possible result of the first action is changed. You shout at somebody, and then they remember that, okay, next time I'm going to get that person, I'm going to get even with them. They shouted at me, Then you apologize, and different. Okay, I won't get my revenge then. No. Possibly. No. But there is a possibility to change there. Like we all have, as it were, and the action and the result has a certain momentum to them. Like all the actions we've done in the past have certain momentum to them. But if we change our behavior now, we can alter that. We all grow up, basically, we all grow up not knowing the truth, not knowing about the Buddhist teachings. Basically, we're ignorant. Yeah. But if you just accept that now, that's my fate. I'm born to be stupid. I'm born to be unenlightened. That's my karma. So ignorance is bliss, right? So you can say blissfully stupid and suffer the consequences. Or you can recognize, the Buddha is telling us there's a possibility to change. I can change those habits of ignorance by, and the Buddha gives us, I mentioned last time, I think, the 4 ways, five ways to overcome delusion, ignorance. Studying, being near a teacher, investigating, looking at the meaning, looking at cause and effect. The Buddha gives us practical ways to do that, deal with ignorance. And read the books. Read my book. No. It's online, by the way. Even though there's very few copies left, it's almost out of print, but it's online, that's all. At least you can learn the basics. And of course, the highest form of knowledge is meditation, to experience it directly. I mean, I wrote this book many years ago, and already I forget it. Have to look back again. What did I say back there? What was it? But if you realize it, you don't forget it, you see. So it's important to have this difference between action and result. See? When you bring the two together, you come up with the conclusion that all of our actions, we have to experience the results of all of our previous actions. Huh? Anybody ever think that? I did. When I first heard about karma, I just thought, we're acting, so there's results, so we're stuck. You got to experience all the results of the previous actions. The Buddha said, if you think like that, there's no chance to be enlightened then. You're a prisoner of your past experiences. You're a prisoner of the past. It means you can't change the future. So he said, there's no chance for enlightenment then. And that was one of the belief systems in India, see. There were 3 belief systems the Buddha criticized that are detrimental to action, to putting forth effort and energy. One of them is to believe that you have to receive the results of all your previous actions. It's endless. I mean, even this lifetime, if I thought of all the spiders I picked legs off of and all the butterflies I pinned or something, oh my gosh, I'd be suffering a lot. But I can make amends in the meantime. I can offer metta to all the butterflies and all the spiders, and hopefully change the results. You see, I won't get in a future life. I won't get pinned by a moth, a bigger moth. I'm born into a world with big moths, and they pin humans to the board. So one of the first of these beliefs which undermined any effort to be free, liberated, was believing that we have to experience the results of all of our previous actions. Second one is that there's no causal relationship. You do an action, just by accident any result happens. There's no link, no direct causal association there, see. And some people believe that, your life is just a series of accidents. And the third one was that everything we do is just due to the act of some god. We're just pawns of some god somewhere. Whatever we do is already predicted by or controlled by God. So can't do anything yourself, except maybe pray to God and be nice to us. But the Buddha's approach is more do it yourself. Or really do it your non-self, but we do have some initiative. While we still are prisoners of our past, the conditions are the results of our past actions, to a certain degree, but there's also have the possibility to make some changes. So for example, you're developing meditation practice, probably you recognize that a lot of the habits of mind you've experienced, old thoughts coming up and, maybe numbers going through your brain. they are result of previous mental habits, you see. Yeah. But you can make some changes. You can make some effort to kind of put them to rest, step back from them, The last time, was it the 5 ways of dealing with distracting thoughts? Practical details, ways to deal with distracting thoughts. Practical steps we can take. It does take some effort. With Kamma, the Buddha also emphasized the importance of energy. You can say the right energy is important too. So we put forth the effort, we can slowly make changes, and it depends on, first of all, how much effort we put into it, and how, we can say, pure our intention is. Maybe pure is a bit too optimistic or too idealistic. Huh? How consistent and strong our intention is. To really make an effort. I mean, the Buddha, and sometimes the Buddha emphasized very much the power of energy, to the effect that, I think it was the day of his enlightenment, and he say something like he would never move from this spot, let his blood dry up and his muscles shrivel, and he would never get up from the spot until he's enlightened. Now that's energy. Of course, I wouldn't be too idealistic in the beginning. I can say, okay, I'll go up to the meditation hall and sit there, and I'm not going to get up from this meditation till I'm enlightened. Yeah. Good luck. Yeah. But he recognized that this was the right time and the place for that. Make a really, really determined effort, the real breakthrough. Maybe you can say all the other 7 factors of the Eightfold Path already came together. You just needed right energy. So, and it all came together. The eight qualities of the Eightfold Path came together at that point, you see. But energy is a very, very important part of it. And, part of it has to do with, the continuity, the intensity of it, and how the quality of it, based on wisdom. We have some understanding of ourselves. There's one story of one of the monks. I won't say who it was because you might hear it. But anyway, he went to not one of Ajahn Chah's monastery, but another monastery near Bangkok, and they do these practices where they stay in a room and do the intensive meditation in a room. You see. Hours and hours of sitting in a room meditating. And so he heard one of the monks, also from Wat Pah Pong, who was there with him. He had quite a powerful experience there. So he said, oh yeah, I got to do this too. So he determined that he was going to sit the meditation all night. So he's really, really, really inspired, and he sat down before the Buddha image to meditate, and determined to stay all night. And after about half an hour, he just, terribly restless and mind going crazy. And, I just can't do it. So, and he made a determination before the Buddha. You see, he sat in front of the Buddha and he said, I will stay in front of the Buddha here till I'm enlightened and have a breakthrough. And so then of course he had to back down, and so he had to apologize to the Buddha. And he went to the Ajahn and told the Ajahn. The Ajahn said, well, you just have to go back, and sit there again and then apologize to the Buddha, make amends, ask for forgiveness from the Buddha. So okay, he goes back to his room and sits there and asks forgiveness from the Buddha. Sorry, I was, trying to be overconfident. And then as he was sitting there, he thought, well, I'll just cross my legs and sit here. And he crossed his legs and sat there for 3 hours. No problem. But he was trying to do it the first time. You see, he was trying, it was coming from his ego. I'm going to have a big breakthrough. I'm going to get enlightened. I'm going to do it. And of course, it just tripped him up to the Buddha and be humble and acknowledge his limitations and sat there. It was very peaceful for 3 hours. So be careful, your self can play tricks on you, So. But if you bring some awareness to your intention, just the everyday intention, why you're walking. One of the exercises in one of the Burmese traditions is to try and be aware of your intention. Whenever you change postures, just try to acknowledge what your intention is first. And at first, maybe it's not so clear, and maybe, then it's very mundane, maybe. I have to, change posture because my knees are sore or something rather. But, you just become aware of it, conscious of it, and then you can bring up that awareness of intention in different aspects of your life. And you might get some much more clearer perception of what that is, what's motivating you, really, motivating you in your practice. And when that dries up, when that motivation is gone. Like some people, they're motivated only by success. That's what I was in the early days of practice in Thailand. I was just there for, as long as the meditation was going well, I was going to stay there and get enlightened, no problem. And then it got difficult, and Where else can I go? Let's see now. Fortunately, it didn't last too long. Usually the difficulty didn't last too long, you know. And then after a while, I had the good fortune to go with live with Ajahn Chah, and you know, there was being with other monks, other sangha. You know, you talk to them about, you recognize what was bothering you, why you lost your motivation, maybe, you know. And there's stages one goes through, you know. And one of the early stages is to recognize that if you're only going by success, it's not going to last forever. Yeah, maybe for some people it's, you know, a month, 2 months, 3 months, a year, maybe, and it dries up. But if you're there, for the longer term, ups and downs, normal, yeah, par for the course. Yeah. But you learn to gain some strength from other qualities then, not just inspiration. But if you find out what's motivating you, what your intention is, perhaps you can tune into that, you know. And then the Buddha also said, you know, the results of Kamma cannot be known by thought. It's one of what they call achinteya, and so it shouldn't be speculated about. Thinking thus, one would become distracted and distressed. If you're trying to determine the result of every single action you do, it's, like I say, you can't tell the result of every single action, but patterns maybe. You can notice patterns going through it. So there's action and there's a result, Vipaka, and then the Buddha talks quite a bit about the results, mostly from a moral point of view, you know. To a lot of people, they were still struggling with life in the world, so it was you know, they had to struggle with, you know, how to make a living. So sometimes they had to resort to killing animals and struggling with society. So the Buddha tried to point out to people the benefit, even against temptations, to try to keep the precepts. And sometimes he got very, 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 very colorful in his descriptions. Yeah, the Buddha himself had the experience. He said he had direct experience of his own previous existences and that of other people as part of the three knowledges. And there's some monks around today who also claim to be able to do that. There was one person I knew, one monk I knew in Thailand, and they could just sit in front of somebody and they could tune into their Kamma, yeah, and could tell them what their problem was, you know. It was more to do with when people had some kind of illness, they'd come to him and he would sit there and look at them, and one of the other monks, he asked him in detail, how you do that? He just said, well, I just sit there and then an image comes to me, you know. Like a person will have some illness and then image will come to them and he'd say, you just see their body and he'd see a big black spot where their kidney is. And he'd say, oh, maybe you should go see a doctor and ask him about your kidney. Many times the kidney was diseased. Yeah. But he said sometimes he just saw a big blank screen. He couldn't see anything. The person's karma was completely cut off from him, he said. The person's vipaka was completely blank. He couldn't do anything with them, couldn't give him any suggestions or any help or anything. So anyway, the Buddha talked about the different kinds of kamma and result. And basically, you know, it comes down to what the Buddhists kind of we call cosmology. There are 5 different realms of existence. Yeah, 5 different realms. The hell realm, the animal realm, the ghost realm, human realm, and the heavenly realm. And the Buddha had direct experience of these realms. So whether we do or not, we've got to take it on trust maybe. And there is, you know, when I use the word realm here. I forget what the Pali word is, but you know, it's since the Buddhist teachings is very, very subjective. It's not so clear to distinguish between the internal and the external. we perceive the so-called external through the internal, through our own senses and the mind, you see. So whether these are actually physical realms of existence, if you dig down deep enough, you get to hell, or it's purely psychological, maybe a mixture of both. But anyway, the Buddha said he experienced them, so just take it on trust for now. But some people, they try and look for a place, but most of us have been on airplanes before, flying through the clouds. Have you seen heaven up there yet? Anybody knocked into heaven? Is it above Australia or is it above Canada? I think it might be above Thailand. I've seen some beautiful sunsets in Thailand because the flight from Ubon is in the evening, so get some beautiful. But I can't quite believe that heaven is over Bangkok, mind you. But but maybe lots of devas there. It's the city of devas, right? Krungthep, yeah, yes. Anyway, what the Buddha is saying here is that he points out that when one creates in one's mind, when someone generates an afflictive bodily formation, that is action, an afflictive word speech, an afflictive mental state, then when you generate those states, then they reappear in an afflictive world. Afflictive, afflictive? Afflictive means, you can say negative, basically. A very, very unpleasant one. So you generate that thought in your mind. You generate the thought in your mind of, say, violence. You speak violently. You act violently. Then you appear in a violent world, right? Just psychologically speaking, right? If you speak, act, and think violently, then your whole world is violence, right? Yeah. And then when you appear in a violent world, say, I'm just saying an example, then violent contacts afflict you. If you're very violent in a violent environment, you're going to get violence back to you again. And then you feel those extremely painful feelings, just as in the beings who are down in the hell realms. So it starts off with the mind, see, and with body, speech, and mind, your actions, and then you reappear in an afflictive world, afflictive, violent world, and you get those violent feelings, painful feelings, just like beings in hell. So you created your own hell by your own actions in your mind, and speech and action, right? So where is hell actually? It's in your own mind. Whereas if you generate an unafflictive, you say a positive action, physical action, verbal action, mental action, then you reappear in a pleasant world. And you get pleasant contacts and then pleasant feelings, just like beings in heaven. So heaven and hell are where? Yeah, in your own mind, yeah. And where your mind is, that's what you see. Yeah. So whether it's here or there, it doesn't really matter so much. It's really what you experience. See. I had a little bit of the experience of this, not heaven or hell, but of the effect of a person's attitude on their world, you see. Like I went to some place, there was a Buddhist group in Switzerland, had a little group in a very small town in Switzerland, and finally they got enough supporters together, they invite us to come there to this group, you see. So two of us traveled there, quite a long journey across Switzerland, to the mountains, very scenic, mind you. And we got to this place, and we stayed there for a few days, and there was two women there who I remember. One of them, she was kind of, how to put it politely, she was not very happy, put it that way. Very, very critical and complaining and kind of been on the angry side. And she told me that she'd been to Burma meditating, you see. And I said, oh, really? How was it in Burma? And she was saying, it's terrible. It's a monastery, the meditation center was really dirty, and the people are unfriendly, and meditation was really hard work, and it's a terrible experience. Well, really? Yeah. There's another woman who was basically the exact opposite. She was always smiling and always cheerful, and just to be around her was just pleasant to be with her. She was always cheerful and friendly and generous, and she mentioned she'd been to Burma too. Maybe even to the same place, I don't know. I said, oh, really? How was that like? He said, it was wonderful. Place was wonderful. The people were so generous and kind. And have they been to the same country? Then it occurred to me, oh, of course, that's how they experienced it. Because that's how their mind was. The generous, kind, open person would attract generous, kind, open people. And see everything wonderful, Where the other one was so critical and negative and angry, people would stay away from her and be very unfriendly to her, and wouldn't help her. And I realized it wasn't the country, it was the person. They created their own world, And wherever they went, the world went with them, Doesn't matter where they go, it's not the country, it's the person who's living it. So be careful what you think. Okay, from tomorrow we're going to have a very cheerful heavenly monastery. Of course, we still have we all have still results of our previous actions, so I'm not just going to go around smiling overnight probably, but you recognize the importance of changing your attitude, So anyway, the Buddha talks about these things, and most people, I think, would imagine that these realms are somewhere outside, somewhere they have to go up to, and attain to, or somewhere. But the Buddha, being a meditator, of course, he emphasized very much your state of mind, the internal world. If your internal world is heavenly, your external world is heavenly, basically, or hellish, depending on your way of looking at things. So, what one intends, what one plans, whatever one has a tendency towards, that becomes the basis for the maintenance of our consciousness, our vinyan. See? That's the intention. Yeah. And like I say, the intention is very subtle. So it's and deeply within us. Sometimes we're very, very unclear what our intentions are. Most people are, But if you try to bring some awareness to it, perhaps you can make them a bit more clear. What's your intention? Is your intention really to do with harm? The samma sankappa. That's the right intention, the right motivation, the right aspiration in the Eightfold Path towards renunciation, non-ill will, non-cruelty. That's a noble intention, see. So if you emphasize that in your life, then favorable circumstances will arise from it. You create a heavenly-like world. And then there are the Buddha gave some direct results of certain particular behaviors. I don't know if it's scary or not, but helpful to know, though, maybe. Quite a few of the scriptures talk about, like in the middle-length discourses, number 129 and 130, give you some very, very vivid descriptions of the realms, especially the hell realms. Yeah, so you read that, you're really scared into being good. Scared good. But then somebody asked the Buddha about the results in the human realm. So the Buddha basically said, if one is very violent throughout one's life, one has a very short life next lifetime. If you say you injure living beings, then you're born sickly. If you're very angry, you're born ugly. So yeah, angry, ugly. Have I got that? So metta. Then you'll be beautiful. If you're stingy, you'll be born poor. Generous, be born rich. And if you don't ask the teacher about questions, then you're born stupid. Oh, wait a minute, hold it. I better not. I shouldn't have said that, should I? You have to, now I say, if you don't read the book, you're stupid. Now the book is more the stand-in teacher these days, so, and sometimes the book is more accurate than the teacher. I had time to study what I had to put down, but can't always remember what the result of the answer is, so. So anyway, these, somebody asked about, of course they asked the question, do we have to, are everything we experience due to our past lives, past experiences, past Kamma? Buddha said, ridiculous, And there's a famous scripture, anyway, one of them that talks about the 8 different kinds of dukkha. Dukkha comes from 8 different causes, not always. Kamma Vipaka is only one of them, one of 8. 4 of them have to do with illness. 5 of them actually. One is changes of seasons too, can cause you some suffering. But there's also accidents just happen. Somebody's in a plane crash. It's not necessarily they're a Kamma Vipaka. Just the wrong, in the wrong place at the wrong time, that's all. But what you do at that time, that does affect, your Kamma and Vipaka. So if you, like when Ajahn Chah was on the airplane the first time to England, and then they got up in the air and just left Bangkok, and he said, "Oh, we have a little bit of an issue here. One of our wheels has blown out. One of our tires is blown out. So when we land in London, we're going to have a little bit of emergency, you see." So, I think they announced that before they landed, I think. They want to worry people the whole flight. So, just when they're landing in Heathrow, they said, "Oh, we have a little issue here. One of our wheels is blowing, So we're going to maybe have a little bit of emergency when we land, So Ajahn Chah said it was his first time to England, and he said, "Well, this is the end of my life. That's the way it goes, And he just sat there and said he put his mind in a very, very peaceful place and just sat there, and the plane landed, no problems, But you see, if anybody else is probably panicking, they're probably panicking right in their wheels, But he just sat in a very peaceful place, and, and the plane had crashed. You probably go straight to heaven. Or maybe even beyond, so. But how many people could do that at that particular moment of stress and emergency, But all his practice for 40 years or something, all came together at that time, and he was ready for it. Everybody else was panicking or getting anxious and frightened, and, just tuned it out, and yeah. So, you never know when you're going to be on another airplane, and so you better, still got 5 weeks of the Vasa left, so practicing diligently, then, the results will arise by themselves. So, yeah, so hopefully you'll appreciate the benefit of developing good practice for the rest of the time.
Sadhu, 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 anumodami.